very good day to all. I'm Dr. S. Akila, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, BPS and BI, Sri Krishna Arts and Science College, Coimbatore. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for providing this opportunity to share some reflections and to be a part of this really important event on such an auspicious day. So today we are going to discuss about the most important sustainable development goals out of UN sustainable development goals. There are 17 important goals, out of which we are going to talk about SDG 4, that is sustainable development goal for quality education. I dream of a world where the education system creates critical thinkers and not just people who can spit out information for a test. So today we are zooming in onto SDG 4, which is quality education, and I'm really looking forward to this one because education is something a lot of us do take it for granted, but it is not available to everyone. And it is such a fundamental building block for good life. So let's get going and dive into SDG for quality education more. So education is a crucial SDG or a sustainable development goal because it enables upward socio-economic mobility and is a key part of escaping poverty. It is the absolute basis and foundation for acquiring decent work, which in turn provides almost all basic necessities. SDG 4 covers multiple dimensions of education, training, and development from birth to death, or as you might have heard it more often, like lifelong learning. So it is made up of 10 targets, and within them, I generally noticed a few big themes that came up over and over again. First is accessibility, which is how difficult or easy it is to obtain an education, including eliminating barriers that may prevent access, such as cost, location, or socio-economic conditions. The second dimension I noticed is equity, which looks more at who is able to access the education system, in particular, ensuring that marginalized groups have the support they need for access and participations. Next is quality, and this dimension really says it's not enough to simply access education or make it available. The system needs to be adequate quality in order to ensure that people get the skills and knowledge they need to participate in society and move a good life for them. Ultimately, education is a means to a larger end and a very important at that. So let's take a closer look at each of the targets in this goal. Yes. So what is target 4.1 says? By 2030, ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. To begin to understand this target, a good place to start is looking at how it's measured, which in this case is a portion of children and with minimum levels of reading and math comprehension at different stages of their educational journeys. This is an outcome focus measurement or a measurement that's focused on the result we want to see. But it is a little bit simplistic and there is a lot more wrapped up in this definition. So let's break down a few keywords in the target. First one is primary and secondary education. What exactly is that? Effectively, it's grade 1 to 12 or the school that children attend from ages 6 to 18. I note this because exact grade levels do really vary a lot depending on the country. So it's easier just to think of it as the education that children get during those years. This target says that all 12 years of education should be offered and the first 9 should be compulsory. Primary refers to children ages 6 to 12 and secondary is for children aged 13 to 18. The next word I want to highlight is complete. This is getting at the fact that it's not enough for education to just be available. Success is based on how many children actually finish the primary and secondary education. In other words, just getting them in the seat is not enough. There needs to be a focus on getting them that diploma at the end. Free is another crucial word here. Specifically, this means that 12 years of education should be free for children and publicly funded as in funded by the government. Equitable. I mentioned this at the top, but it will come up over and over again because SDG4 really wants to ensure that all children have access to quality education, regardless of their gender, their race, their ethnicity, socioeconomic status, location, and other factors. And finally, the word quality. While the measurement of this target uses numeracy and literacy as a proxy, there is a general understanding that quality goes beyond just those things. A more complete definition would be one that focuses on social, emotional, mental, physical, and cognitive development of a children and that gives them that skills and capabilities they need to have a good life. So where do we currently stand in children on primary and secondary education? As I'm sure you can imagine, the number of children out of school go up with each level of education. And what I mean by that is that a large number of children start in school, and over the years of a wide number of reasons, those numbers do tend to decrease, particularly by the time children hit higher education. Globally, we have made really good progress on reducing the number of children who are out of school. However, projections before the pandemic predicted that more than 200 million children would still be out of school, and only 60% of young people would complete their upper secondary education by 2030. These projections, of course, will surely be impacted by the massive school closures we were experienced during the pandemic as well. So it could be even worse. The easiest way to see children out of school is to look at this chart by UNESCO. So is that for primary education, the number of out of school children fell from 99.7 million in 2000 to 59.1 million in 2008. Represents a primary school completion rate of 84% in 2018 when it was only 70% in 2000, and it is projected to be around 89% globally by 2030. For lower secondary education, the number of out of school children fell from 98.7 million in 2000 to 61.5 million in 2018, and for upper secondary out of school children fell from 177.1 million in 2000 to 137.8 million in 2018. That means that today we have approximately 258.4 million children out of school, which is down from 375.5 million in 2000. I know that's a lot of numbers, but that's why the chart is helpful too. Now, if we look at literacy and numeracy rates, what we will see is that in 2050, an estimate 617 million or 55% of school children in primary or lower or secondary school globally lacked minimum proficiency in reading and mathematics. According to and statistics, one third of these children were out of school and two-thirds actually did attend but did not become proficient. So, despite years of steady growth in enrollment rates, non-proficiency rates remain disturbingly high. So, let us move on with our target 4.2 now. Yes. What does Target 2.4.2 says? By 2030, ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development care and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. This target looks at early childhood education and development, which encompasses the physical, emotional, social, and cognitive growth of a child from birth, approximately age 5. It is incredibly important period for every person's life as it is a foundational to so many other aspects of growth as well as development. According to UNICEF, during the first few years of life, more than 1 million neural connections are formed every second, a pace that is never repeated again in all our lifetimes. So, early childhood development and education encompasses many aspects, including nurturing care, good health, optimal nutrition, and a stimulating and stay a safe environment for all-round development and learning. But for the purposes of this SDG target, it is measured by two important aspects. So number one is the percentage of children under 5 who are developmentally on track in at least three of the four following reasons. One, literacy. Two, numeracy. Three, physical, social, emotional, and learning. Next, environmental rates in pre-primary education kindergarten. So where are we on this particular target? Well, according to UN statistics, the participation rate in early childhood education has been steadily increasing. It was 69% in 2017, but that was up from 63 point percentage in 2010. However, disparities do remain based on the socio-economic conditions in the country. For example, pre-primary education participation rates were only 43% in least developed countries. Measuring if a child is developmentally on track is a little bit more complicated. Data from 74 countries did find that 7 out of 10 children are developmentally on track globally. Okay. So what is target 4.3? By 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational and tertiary education, including university. Now, this target aims to reduce barriers, including cost to higher education, which is education that happens after your compulsory primary and secondary education. Yeah. So it also has a provision for a lifelong learning. The terms technical, vocational, and tertiary training are often used interchangeably or in overlapping ways. But ultimately, there is kind of two big categories. Technical or vocational training is usually a training for a very specific skill. This would be things like trades, cooking, very specific technical jobs and technicians. And then you have what would be called as tertiary education, which is more the academic space. We think of like colleges and universities. So more following and academic skills, it versus trying to get into a very specific trade or skill. So this is one of those targets that is quite difficult to measure. Now we will move on with target 4.4 in quality education now. Yeah. By 2030, substantially increase the number of youths and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. Okay. This target may seem very similar to previous one, but there is a huge focus on skills here, and there is a recognition that skills can be gained in ways outside of formal education channels. It advocates for increasing and diversifying skills through a whole range of teaching as educational modalities. It also looks beyond work specific skills and focuses on high level cognitive and non cognitive and transferable skills such as problem solving, critical thinking, creative teamwork, conflict resolution, and communication. These skills can be of useful across the range of occupational fields. Interestingly, the only indicator for this particular target looks at ICT or information communication technology skills, and it measures it by looking at a range of things that we do on computer every day, like copy pasting, using emails, using spreadsheets, or making a presentation, as well as more advanced skills like coding and understanding computer languages. There is a very little data on this, and it's a pretty new area of measurement in the education space. So it's also insufficient because we know things like critical thinking and problem solving. It's hard to think about how these might be measured in a very quantifiable context, right? Let us move on with our target 4.5. By 2030, eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and children in vulnerable situations. Yes. So, this particular target really narrows in on the idea of equity and inclusion in education, specifically looking at disparities. Now, this has been brought up in other targets, but 4.5 really makes it explicit, and it says that everyone should have access to the same level of education, regardless of their gender, age, color, ethnicity, nationality, language, sexual orientation, region, political, or other opinion or socio-economic status. So it calls special attention to people with disabilities, indigenous peoples, migrants, and other vulnerable groups, and recognizes that specific strategies may be needed to meet their needs. It also points out that women and girls may have additional and more difficult conditions in order to allow them to be able to take on school. Things like hygiene concerns, threats of child labor and marriage, more home duties, etc., really impact girls. A lot of progress has been made on making sure that girls have the same educational opportunities as boys as of now. Now, measuring this particular target is very similar and uses very similar indicators to all the other ones. The number of out of school children, literacy and numeracy rates, those types of things. But the difference here is that it uses a disaggregated data approach. Now, disaggregated data is when you take the full data set and then you narrow in on specific factors that may have an impact. So this could be race, it could be gender, it could be income inequality, and it puts these groups in different quintals and allows you to compare and contrast the data. So now we will move on with the targets 4.6 in SDG 4. Yes, by 2030, ensure that all youth and a substantial portion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. Yes. So literacy is the ability to read and write, and numeracy is the ability to reason and apply basic numerical concepts. This particular target looks at functional literacy and numeracy, which is the level you would have after completing a basic education. Over the last 5 years, literacy and numeracy has increased approximately 4% every 5 years. So that's it about 4.6 target. Now let us move on with target 4.7. What does it say? By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and nonviolence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. Yeah. Target 4.7 is really a novel addition to the 2030 agenda. And it recognizes that education must include information about sustainable development, citizenship, human rights, peace, and other topics. This is something that I think is so crucial, where it is looked up at across all levels, where this type of information might be integrated. So whether that be at the national policy level, in school curriculums, in teachers' capacity, etc. That is how they are starting to think about how they might measure if this is being done next. And finally, Finally, this goal has three means of implementation targets that focuses on things like educational facilities, scholarships and funding for education, and the workforce and teaching staff and support a good education system. So the final part, as we were talking about the teaching staff, supporting a good educational system, the workforce, all comes under target 4.7's ABC category. Right. So that's it. We are done with quality for education as of now. I think we'll sum up with this right now. Yeah. So we'll quality education. We have of seven important targets along with the ABC target. So number one is target one is primary and secondary education. Number target two, that is 4.2, is early education, childhood education. Target 4.3 is higher education. Target 4.4 is skills development. 4.5 talks about equity and inclusion. 4.6 talks about literacy and numeracy, and target 4.7 talks about sustainability, human rights, etc. in education. Finally, there is ABC target, which is education facilities, scholarships, and teaching staffs. That's it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. And once again, I thank you for this generous invitation extended to me as a keynote speaker in this laudable global educational conference organized by I2OR. Thank you all.